Now when it comes to my previous video in regards to new weapon type in the Monster Hunter series, a number of people actually asked me to research two particular weapon types in the Monster Hunter series that never actually made it into the final version of Monster Hunter Generations due to the fact that these weapon types were instead replaced with hunting style and hunter arts. Now in this video, what we're going to take a look at is one of these weapon types that was completely scrapped by Capcom when it comes to Monster Hunter Generations. This is none other than the Wyvern Boomerang. Now let's go ahead and take a look. Hey everyone, Pinoy X here once again, back with another Monster Hunter video, and today, as you can see, what we are gonna take a look at is a weapon type that Capcom initially planned when it comes to Monster Hunter Generations, but ultimately scrapped in favor of hunting style and hunter arts when it comes to this game. Now there were two weapon types that Capcom created when it comes to Monster Hunter Generations. However, in this video, we're only going to be focusing on one of them, and that is none other than the Wyvern Boomerang. Now just like my previous video in regards to the gauntlets, what we are going to take a look at is the overall characteristics of the Wyvern Boomerang and how this weapon type would have played out in the Monster Hunter series if Capcom actually created them, maybe let's say for the next Monster Hunter game. Now with all of that being said, if you enjoyed these videos, please consider leaving a like on the video itself and subscribing to the channel so you can go ahead and catch up on any other content that I might be doing in future. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this scrapped weapon type that is none other than the Wyvern Boomerang when it comes to the Monster Hunter series. To kick things off on this video, first and foremost, let's quickly take a look at the general overview when it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang as if it were an actual weapon type when it comes to the Monster Hunter series. When it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang in the series, generally speaking, this is meant to be a combination of melee playstyle alongside long-range playstyle. However, because the idea was scrapped and instead replaced with hunting style and hunter arts, there's no other information aside from the concept art that really details how this weapon would have played out when it comes to Monster Hunter if it was added in Monster Hunter Generations. Now, in terms of the overall design of the Wyvern Boomerang, those of you who have played Monster Hunter Frontier, the design would be very familiar because this is none other than the magnet spike in terms of its overall design. Now, generally speaking, the magnet spike could be considered as a spiritual successor when it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang, but at the same time, a lot of its gameplay is vastly different when it comes to comparing it to the actual Wyvern Boomerang because a lot of the playstyle when it comes to the magnet spike is focused on melee playstyle, whereas the Wyvern Boomerang is a combination of both melee and long-range playstyle if it was added in the Monster Hunter series. So overall, this is a completely different weapon type to the magnet spike in case anyone out there might start comparing the two when it comes to Monster Hunter. Now with all of that being said, let's first take a look at the damage type of the Wyvern Boomerang if it was added in the Monster Hunter series. If the Wyvern Boomerang was added into the Monster Hunter series, generally speaking, a lot of people will think that this is a severing type weapon because of the fact that the concept art actually shows a sharpened weapon. However, having said that, when it comes to boomerangs of all kinds, you can go severing or blunt based weapon depending on your own personal preference. For me personally, because there's already way too many severing type weapons in the game, I generally would like to think that this is going to be another blunt based weapon in order to complement both the hammer and the hunting horn as well as the long range weapons at the same time when it comes to a Monster Hunter game. Having said that though, a lot of people would like to cut tails with a boomerang, which makes a lot of sense in my personal opinion again, so maybe a severing type weapon would also make a lot more sense in comparison to a blunt type weapon. Now overall, Capcom can go one way or the other when it comes to a damage type in terms of the Wyvern Boomerang if it was added into a Monster Hunter game. So I'm not gonna be all too bothered when it comes to Capcom choosing severing type weapons or blunt type weapons when it comes to creating a Wyvern Boomerang, let's say in the next Monster Hunter game. Now moving on from the damage type, let's now take a look at potential playstyle when it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang if it was added into a Monster Hunter game. Now the concept art does give us a lot of information when it comes to the overall playstyle of the Wyvern Boomerang, but if you really want to look into what kind of potential playstyle we're looking into, then all we really have to do is look at two playstyles in the Monster Hunter series to get a better understanding of the Wyvern Boomerang in its entirety, because these two playstyles, if you fuse them together, technically gives you the overall playstyle of a Wyvern Boomerang, which is a hybrid between melee playstyle and long-range playstyle. If you're looking into melee playstyle when it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang, then all you really need to look into is Monster Hunter Frontier when it comes to the Magnet Spike. The Magnet Spike, believe it or not, is the spiritual successor when it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang, because it takes the general shape of the Wyvern Boomerang, but it doesn't take into consideration the long-range gameplay when it comes to the Magnet Spike. The Magnet Spike focuses solely on melee playstyle and nothing else, because everything that you do with the Magnet Spike is all about physically bombarding a monster in order to destroy them. So generally speaking, if you go into slashing mode when it comes to a Magnet Spike, that's the gameplay that you would expect when it comes to a Wyvern Boomerang if you're using it as a melee weapon. If you're looking for the long-range playstyle of this weapon type instead, then we have to go back into Monster Hunter Generations and start playing with the Prowler playstyle. Prowlers can actually use a boomerang of different sizes when it comes to the game, allowing us to get an idea as to what a boomerang playstyle would be like when it comes to using it as a long-range weapon. Now at this case scenario, if you fuse both the melee type capabilities of the Magnet Spike and the long-range capabilities of the Prowler's boomerang, that should give you a rough idea as to the overall playstyle of the Wyvern Boomerang as a hybrid weapon when it comes to a Monster Hunter game. Now generally speaking, that's all of the information that you need to know about when it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang in terms of its overall hybrid playstyle. Having said that though, Capcom does have some additional information when it comes to the concept art that should help players portray this weapon a little bit better in terms of its overall gameplay. First and foremost, we do actually have a button combination when it comes to throwing the weapon. If you want to throw the weapon in a straight line, you simply press the X button. If you want to throw the weapon in a circular motion, you press the A button. Finally, by pressing both the X and the A button at the same time, you can actually throw the weapon into the air in order to attack flying monsters. So that's kind of the general idea behind the button combinations when it comes to using the Wyvern Boomerang as a long-range weapon. Now as a final note, for anyone out there wondering about the Gypsyros artwork when it comes to the concept art, that's actually portraying one more key information when it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang in terms of its entire weapon type. The Wyvern Boomerang actually involves the gauntlets as well when it comes to the hunter's entire kit using this weapon type. When it comes to the gauntlets, you can use them as melee weapons if the boomerang is flying around and you can't use it as a melee weapon. Alongside this, if the boomerang is flying around and you actually wanted to hit a monster, you can punch the boomerang to change trajectory in order for you to attack a monster at long range without having to throw the boomerang once again when it comes to this weapon type. So generally speaking, this is a super awesome weapon type. Why wasn't it added in Monster Hunter Generations? Seriously, I am actually enjoying a lot of the information that I've learned when it comes to the Wyvern Boomerang in general, and I'm really hoping that this is a weapon type that we do get to see in another Monster Hunter game, just because of the fact that everything that I've learned about it to this day has been super awesome. Hopefully Capcom takes into consideration going back to some of their concept arts and seeing the Wyvern Boomerang once again and actually trying to make it work when it comes to the next Monster Hunter game. Now that is pretty much it for this video, taking a look at the Wyvern Boomerang in its entirety when it comes to the Monster Hunter series. It's really a shame that Capcom didn't take into consideration creating it as a full-fledged weapon when it comes to Monster Hunter Generations and instead retooled it as the Magnet Spikes when it comes to Monster Hunter Frontier. Hopefully in a future Monster Hunter game, we do get to see it resurface as a fully fledged weapon type in order for us to utilize a hybrid weapon when it comes to both melee playstyle and long-range playstyle when it comes to the Monster Hunter series. What do you think about the Wyvern Boomerang when it comes to a Monster Hunter game? Is it actually something that you would like to see as a full-fledged weapon type, or would you consider any other weapon types in the game instead of the Wyvern Boomerang? Let me know in the comments below what you think about this weapon type when it comes to Monster Hunter. Now that is pretty much it from me for this video. If you enjoyed these videos, please consider leaving a like on the video itself and subscribing to the channel, as well as hitting that bell icon so you can go ahead and catch up on any future Monster Hunter content that I might be doing or any other games that I might be playing in future. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video, thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Onward and upward.